Straw Hut Media.
Hey everybody, are you ready for an adventure? It's Mark J. Parker, film lover and filmmaker, and this is Release Date Rewind, a podcast that celebrates milestone movie anniversaries. Thank you for listening to my show, which is part of the Straw Hut Media Network wherever you get your podcasts, or watching it on YouTube. It's another May double feature in this episode as we honor and compare memorable movies from the 80s and from the 90s again. Last time it was about life in high school, but this time we're getting exotic. Today we're saying happy 40th anniversary to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom from Steven Spielberg, and happy 25th to The Mummy from Stephen Sommers. Two Steves make a right. What a rush this is gonna be. We have rugged leading men, fashionable leading ladies, comedy, suspense, and lots of bugs. Now, if you need to watch or rewatch these Oscar-nominated movies and Oscar-winning movie, Temple of Doom is currently available to stream on Paramount Plus and on Disney Plus, along with the rest of the Indiana Jones franchise, while you can watch The Mummy and its sequel, The Mummy Returns, currently on Peacock. All right, everybody, hop on your camels or elephants and crack open that Book of the Dead because it's time to rewind. I am so super thrilled to have her back. I've known her for many years. I haven't seen her in already, we were just saying it's been like 13 months since she was last on the show. Welcome back to Release Date Rewind, Jackie Renne. Hey, Jackie.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
You look great. You always look so good, so fashionable. Where do you get like your fashion sense? Is it from the movies?
It's from the movies. I can't even lie. There's a thing called Shop Your TV. There's like an as seen on TV for clothes, and I will go on and I will hunt things down, and I'm like, oh, that looks great on me. Judith Light was wearing a jacket in a show, and I'm like, okay, well, let me type that in, and I found it and I bought it.
As you might remember, Jackie was last on the show, like we said, 13 months ago already, talking about Evil Dead with our friend Katie. We've known each other for years from school. So Evil Dead was a really fun one. And now we're talking about some dead people, some spirits. There's a little bit of connection here with a really fun double feature that I'm very excited to chat with you about. We have Temple of Doom and we have The Mummy. Now, real quick, before we get into Temple of Doom, we'll start with that first, Jackie, because came first, 1984, all that, before we get to 99. But I want you to tell everyone why you love The Mummy so much. Because even Katie, our friend, she was like, you have to have Jackie on for The Mummy. You know that, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm planning on it. But like, so tell us like, why do you love it so much?
So it's funny that you bring up Katie because I have this saved from my wedding shower. Everybody had to write a memory about me. And it was, so Katie wrote, and you had to guess who it was, and I knew immediately. In middle school, you were in my science class and you would tell me how obsessed you were with the Mummy movies and how you'd seen them a bunch of times, and you'd have these big crazy eyes while telling me how much you love these movies and asking me, but no, have you seen these movies? And I was like, oh, it's Katie. Of course. We were in 6th grade science class. It was like, God, the first time I saw the Mummy was like so magical. It was on a snow day. Oh. It was like the whole neighborhood was in this like all the streets converged. All the kids were in this like full on like snowball war. Like we had built trenches and we're like hoarding snowballs and stuff. And then at the end of the day, when everyone was wet and tired, my neighbors invited me over and they had rented The Mummy. And my mom was like, yeah, it's fine. Just come back for dinner. And so I was like a little nervous because it was marketed as a horror movie.
Right.
But I had seen it was like, I had actually just watched or just completed Temple of Doom not too long before that.
Wow. And perfect.
The year before that, I had seen The Mask of Zorro. And so it was like a mishmash of the two of those things that I was like, I love these movies. I didn't know what to expect. There was certain parts of it that I was like, am I okay? Am I gonna
Yeah.
make it through this? But it was like a religious experience. I'm like, this movie was made for me. I love like it didn't know what it was. It wasn't straight horror. It was the perfect way to kind of get me into that. It
It's
was
a great
like
gateway. Yep.
adventure. It was like one of the sexiest movies I had ever seen, especially
Hot
after Mask of
cast.
Zorro. Everybody was
Oh,
hot, especially at
uh-huh.
like 11.
Oh, yeah.
And I was basically Tina Belcher as a middle schooler, minus all the confidence. I was like
Yeah.
boy crazy. So I'm like, everybody's hot. And then there was a woman who was like
Oh.
basically the lead of the movie, dark
Mhm.
hair, dark eyes, not like a, big blonde
Mhm.
bimbo, which is what everybody wanted. She was
Mhm.
brainy, she was hot, she was a brunette, she saved the day with her brains. And I'm like, I want to be her. It just like everything sort of converged and it had all of my favorite elements and I could not wait to watch it again immediately.
Yeah.
And what sucked is we had to stop. I had to go eat dinner and then come back the next day and
No.
finish it. Yeah,
And
it
were you able to
was
find, like, the right place? Because back then with VHS, I mean, did you just, like,
they
stop the
literally
tape?
stopped they just stopped the
Wow.
tape. And then the little brother had actually made a bunch of creepy crawlers. And then so when we all sat down, he threw bugs on us. Like
Oh my
it was
god.
like immersion theater. It was
Yes,
fantastic.
immersive viewing. Wow.
Yes.
Oh my
It
gosh. Who
was
who were those neighbors? Do I know them?
so the Gay Bowers, I don't know if you remember them. So there was
Mm.
Kristen, shout out to Kristen, Katie, and Jay.
Hey,
They were my
hey.
next door neighbors all through middle school, high school.
Wow. I
They
don't think I
were
know
like
them.
a couple years younger than us, and then Jimmy was
Okay.
like in middle school,
Yeah.
um, elementary school. He was much, much younger. But
Okay.
it was a whole experience and I had never seen anything like that. And having just like for me, getting through Temple of Doom was an
Yeah.
ordeal, and we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But it was like so scary for me. And if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have made it through the Mummy. And at that point,
Mhm.
that was the scariest thing I had ever seen. And it was so
Wow.
special to me that I was able to make it through and I enjoyed it and I got to see the happy ending and everything. So it was just
Wow.
like up until that point, the coolest thing that I had ever seen.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it just felt like it was made for me.
Oh, I love that so much, Jackie. What a story. And I forgot. I remember this last time. Like, yeah, you were a late bloomer to horror.
I dipped the toe in very, very lightly. It was like fifth
Yeah.
grade. I watched Scream, and then I would have literal nightmares about Ghostface being like
Yeah.
outside of my bedroom because I could see through to the banister and like the stairs,
Ooh.
and he would be
Ooh.
right there in my
Oh.
dreams, being like trying to
Oh, I love
slit
that.
my
Ooh.
throat.
Yeah, meanwhile, you're like,
And
"Ugh," and I'm like, "Ooh, let's shoot that. Come on, Jackie," you know?
Where did you get this?
On a dig down in Thebes.
Jonathan, I think you found something.
Horror, action, romance,
yep.
total comedy, right? So it's a nice
Yes.
safe way to get creepy for a kid or for anyone who's like, a little nervous about that stuff, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny, you actually recommended a book. It was a 1999 best movie year ever.
Yeah, did you get it?
I enjoyed it so, so much. I actually listened
Yes.
to the audiobook
Oh, yeah,
and
how's that?
oh my God, it's fantastic. So I can't remember who narrates it, but he was on Friends. That's all I can remember.
Oh, is he one of the
George.
leads? Oh,
No,
no.
he dated Jennifer
Okay.
Aniston on the show. He was the guy that had the big bushy
Oh.
beard and then shaved, and she was like, "Oh my
Oh.
God, like I want to get with this guy."
That's so funny.
But yeah, it's George something, and I will
Okay.
find it for you. But
Yeah.
the whole theme of every movie that year was
Mhm.
subverting expectations, and it was just
Mm.
it did things that weren't done before, or it was a story that was many different genres. I just felt like most of the movies that they talked about from 1999, that was like the theme of the year. And
Mm.
with The Mummy, you're right. It's not really one genre. There's moments of humor and moments of like I was truly terrified as a child watching this movie. Even
Oh,
now,
yeah.
there's still some stuff that I'm like, ooh, God, that's so scary.
Oh yeah, I know. I love that book. I'm so glad you listened to it. That's amazing. Yeah, and they do mention the mummy in there, of course. We'll talk about some little fun facts in there. But okay, cool. Well, I'm glad I wanted to start off just so that you had the stage to tell us why you love this so much, because people know you love it, and now more people know. So I love that.
It's sweet.
But
People think of me. They're like, oh, they'll send me the
yeah.
memes. And it's like my sexuality as a teen, and it'll be like the cast of the mummy. I'm like, accurate.
Honestly, I'm so glad that so many people realize now, you know, it might have taken some time, that like the Mummy cast and the Temple of Doom. I mean, Harrison Ford is grabbing all sorts of
He's at
attention.
his physical peak.
Whoa. And I looked up his age. He was around 40. So, you know, he's actually like because, you know, everyone back then, especially in the 80s, it's like, are you like 20 or 60? Like, you know, it was like everyone aged so. But no, he looks so fine, baby. But Brendan Fraser, Rachel, I mean, the supporting cast, Arnold Vosloo, Patricia Velasquez, who's
amazing. And look, I'll even give
right?
props. I will even give props to John Hannah, because like I'm
yeah.
you're even cute. Like,
I'm so glad you
on.
are saying that, because honestly, I was rewatching and I'm like, hey, this
His
guy
hair
is
gorgeous.
cute.
If you look,
and
he's got like curly hair, and I'm like, you know what? Great eyebrows. You got a cracking set of eyebrows and like beautiful curly hair, and you're kind of a nerd. There's something for everyone. It's a smorgasbord.
Amen. There is something for everyone in that mummy cast.
You have unleashed the creature that we have feared for more than 3,000 years. Whoa! He will never stop.
We have obviously started the celebration. Here comes the double feature. Let's talk about Temple of Doom. So Jackie, much like every time, I'm going to set the scene for you. Feel free to shout out your thoughts about what was popular 40 years ago today, actually, on this day that we are recording. May 23rd, 1984 is when Temple of Doom was released. Now this, of course, many of you know. If you don't, I'm a little surprised. This was the second Indiana Jones movie, but it's the prequel. So it actually kind of works, because I did not talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark on this show. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really want to talk about a sequel if I haven't talked about the first one, but it's all good. It's fine. It's a prequel. It works, right? It's like the first in the story, right?
And I feel like this stands alone too.
That's a good point. Yeah. So this is what was happening, everybody, in pop culture on the music side. Let's hear it for the boy. That was the #1 song from Footloose.
Denise Williams.
Denise Williams. Yes. Good knowledge, Jackie. You are such a trivia whiz. So let's hear it for the boy. #1 song. #2 song was Hello by Lionel Richie, of course. And #3, one of just the best in the whole history of time. Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper was #3. I mean, just truly iconic, classic, right? And it goes back to our love of Mona May, Romy Michelle, fashion, right? Exactly. When are we getting that sequel? Come on, girls. They like hint at it every few months. They're like, yeah, there's an idea.
It's so frustrating. Just do it.
It's coming. It's coming. We're going to get it somehow, even if it's just like a short film or like a long commercial. We're getting them together somehow, I swear. But other popular songs at this time, because what a time for music. May 84, When Doves Cry by Prince had just been released, right? I mean, one of the biggest songs ever, right? Wake Me Up Before You Go from Wham. That had also just come out earlier in May, right? And What's Love Got to Do With It by Tina Turner, early May 1984. Iconic. So like, whoa, the music was firing on all cylinders at this time when this movie was just starting to come out. So had to shout out those great songs. On the TV side, May was like season or series finale time. So the following shows had just aired their series finales. Fantasy Island, Heart to Heart, and One Day at a Time. They had just come to an end. And I thought this was so funny, Jackie. The wedding episode on As the World Turns, a soap that I auditioned for years ago, and I bombed that audition
Oh my
so
gosh.
badly. Oh my God, Jackie, it was I knew as I was, I mean, I was like in middle school. I was like, I knew right there. I was like, oh, I'm not doing well. I can tell this is not a good audition, which probably just made it worse because I'm sure on my face I'm like, oh yeah, I've lost you. And it's like, yeah. Anyway, so I thought this was so funny. Right around this time, I think it was just a couple days before, As the World Turns aired their wedding episode between the characters Steve and Betsy, played by a very young Meg Ryan. It had attracted 20 million viewers. I mean, a soap sadly can't even maybe get 20,000 viewers nowadays.
It's such a product of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the second highest rated hour in American daytime soap opera history, behind the famous 1981 wedding episode on General Hospital with Luke and Laura. And also, how funny to just a random, super nerdy fun fact that 81 is when Raiders of the Lost Ark was released, and then 84 Temple of Doom, and then we have these big wedding episodes.
That is so funny.
Sort of strange, right? I don't know. Just random thought that just popped into my head. So I don't know. Indie connection. And then last thing I'll say is other popular movies at this time. This, of course, opened at number 1. It was a big deal, of course. But The Natural with Robert Redford, that was high up there. 16 Candles, which I just talked about, that was a popular one. And Firestarter with Drew Barrymore, the original. Yeah, that had just
I actually thought that was earlier than 84.
Yeah. Actually, that came out 2 years after E.T. Yeah, she was young. She looks basically the same age. And I mean, at that age, you're not aging drastically. But yeah, that was her, I think, follow-up after E.T. I still have never seen the original Firestarter in full. I've seen clips, of course. I tried to watch that remake with Zac Efron and turned it off. Did you see that one?
Well, no. I just anytime where it's like you're not old. I mean, technically you're old enough to be a parent, but I remember you as not being old enough to be a parent. Like Aubrey Plaza, 100% old enough to be a parent, and then she was like a single mother in the Child's Play. I'm just like, I'm not vibing with it. I'm used to dads looking so old. Like the dad in Gremlins is basically like a grandpa. Like that's what I grew up with.
Yes. Oh my God, he's such a grandpa. I just saw something today on Instagram that it showed the Cheers cast, their ages during season 1. I thought all of those people were a minimum of 35. No, like 20. Like Kelsey Grammer was 27 in season 1 with his receding hairline. I mean, like everyone. Oh my gosh, just like Rhea Perlman was like maybe like 28, like wild.
That so, I do not believe.
It's wild, right? I know.
There's one that was crazy. I was watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Matt Frewer, who I always thought was like he was the neighbor dad. I absolutely love him. Like I thought he was in his 40s. He was only 32. He was younger than Rick Moranis.
Oh my God, really? Whoa, that is so freaky. We'll be right back.
If adventure has a name, it must be Indiana Jones.
Jackie, in your own words, tell us, for anyone out there who hasn't seen it, needs a refresher, what's the short summary for Temple of Doom?
Basically, it is a prequel that kind of takes place before Raiders. I think it was like a year before Raiders, where Indy, his little buddy Short Round, and a reluctant nightclub singer, Willie, go from Shanghai to India and then run across this village that's been decimated. All their children are missing, and they find out it's connected to Shiva Linga, their sacred stone that has magical powers. And so Indy finds out that it was stolen by a thuggy cult, and he has to fight them to get it back and bring the children and the stones back to the village.
Yes. Wow. Well done. Did you prepare that? It was great.
I tried to. I'm not known for brevity, so I'm like, okay, in as little words as possible, try to sum this up. So
I like how you didn't even like give them. You didn't even like say like Willie Scott. You're like Willie. Like you're like, okay,
Willie.
let's cut any words that aren't
We're
necessary.
on a first name basis.
Yes. Oh, yes, great. And okay, I'm about to make a confession, which I am a little embarrassed by, and I'm sure some listeners, some watchers might be like, "What? I just watched this movie for the first time." Is that
You
not
know,
crazy?
no, actually it's not, because
Yeah?
this got a lot of pushback. This is not people's
Mhm.
favorite movie.
I know.
When you talk to people who are like huge Indiana Jones fans, it's not a movie that they're like, oh, I love Temple of Doom. No, it's the freaking
Mm.
weirdos like me that loved it. That
I love it. I love it so much. I have to say, okay, I have a kind of a weird history with Indiana Jones. So this is for whatever reason, we've done the shows, the spectacles at Disney World. I've seen
Oh yeah.
clips for years and years, right? I'm pretty sure it was even in one of my favorite rides ever, the Great Movie Ride,
Oh
right?
my God,
But,
R.I.P.
right? RIP. Why did they ever get rid of that? Because that is like the best ride ever, right?
Money. They
I
couldn't
guess
afford
so.
it.
Come on. I need it. I guess, you know what? I'm sure it lives on YouTube somewhere. I got to find someone's like janky recording of it. But I saw these movies all out of order. Okay. The first indie film I saw in full was the fourth one with Kate Blanchett and Shia LaBeouf.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh.
I
What
know.
an
I saw that in
introduction.
theaters.
Ugh.
Uh-huh. And then just a couple years ago, I finally sat down and watched all of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like I said, I just saw Temple of Doom just literally like a week ago. I still have not seen the other two. I still have not seen Last Crusade or the new one, Dial of
I
Destiny.
haven't seen Dial of Destiny. I will confess
Okay.
that. But
Yeah.
I was so put out by the Crystal Skull that I'm like, you know what? Maybe I won't.
Yeah, maybe
But
not. I mean, it does have Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who
love Phoebe
I really do
Waller-Bridge.
love. So I feel like there's got to be a little bit of good stuff in there somehow, right?
But Last Crusade is really good. I actually
Okay.
quote it all the time.
Ooh.
Like, it's anytime that I say somebody's doing something wrong, I'm like, he chose poorly. Like, and there's a whole thing with like the Holy Grail and everything. It's
Yep.
worth a watch. And that's usually the one that people are like, okay, Raiders. And I agree, Raiders is a near perfect movie. And again, Raiders, The Mummy, like Back to the Future. Those are movies that they're so comfortable because they're like neatly buttoned up. There's perfect foreshadowing, perfect pacing. You just kind of get to crawl inside them and enjoy them for a little bit. Like
Absolutely.
Temple of Doom is uncomfortable, and I don't think that people
I think that's
enjoyed
why I
it.
love it. Yeah.
And that's why I love it. It is so uncomfortable and so dark. And I know that Spielberg hated the experience of working on this, and he was in a dark place in his life. He said literally, like, the only good thing that came out of it is his now wife. Because he's married to Capshaw. But I would say that give The Last Crusade a shot. It's an amazing movie that usually it's Raiders in that one that people flock to. But honestly, for me, just because it took so long for me to get through this movie, Temple of Doom is always going to be special for me.
I love that. So would you put Temple of Doom as your number one Indiana Jones movie, or do you still think Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark once.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually more beneficial to watch it as an adult. So I was older when I finally, like, my dad had these movies on all the time. It was like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, like Top Gun. Those were some of his favorite movies. And so, you know, if dad had the TV, that's what we were watching. And so it was stuff that always was kind of in the background, also like The Godfather. But I didn't really appreciate it until I was in probably high school. And I'm like, wow, this is a really well-made movie. But I think that this stands apart from Raiders as kind of its own thing because it is a prequel. I have so many like fond memories attached to it that it's kind of its own thing for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you totally. It's very different than Raiders. I liked Raiders when I finally saw it a few years ago in full, but I have to be honest, Temple of Doom held my attention more. Maybe because it is kind of what every good sequel, prequel kind of needs to be, which is louder, more action, more comedy, like just everything's bigger. So I could see why some people maybe are like, oh yeah, that was just like a silly one. I loved it. I was sitting there laughing, jumping, gasping. I mean, it took me on a ride,
I still gasped at some parts.
Oh yeah. I mean, we'll get into our certain moments in a minute, but I mean, yeah, they do really hit you over the head of like, okay, yeah, we are gonna make fun of any possible weird food or gross food or like
that was a little infantile, like
yeah.
Having eaten Indian food and having like it be one of my top cuisines ever. This is insulting.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
so
it's
insulting
like,
to Indian people.
It really is. Like I'm like, okay, this is so not kosher, like that you're just bashing I mean, and also that you're like saying they eat chilled monkey brains. Exactly. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Kate Capshaw is acting, honey. She's like, eyes are crossing, she's about to puke. It's so funny, but I'm like, okay, a couple of these, but like this scene's still going on. So I get it. It's a little silly, but man, what a ride. I was into it the whole entire thing.
The old legend of the Shankara stones. The villager's sacred rock was taken.
Village stories, Dr. Jones.
So obviously Steven Spielberg, our director, he came back after Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course. In between these Indiana Jones movies, he made E.T., going back to Drew Barrymore. So he's just riding that amazing, super duper, crazy successful 80s wave that Spielberg was just running the movies, right? We also have to talk about George Lucas. I always forget that he was very much involved in this franchise, right? Story by George Lucas, And it's interesting. You probably saw this too. You probably knew Lucas, because he's story by, I guess he kind of created, the story, and then they have screenwriters, do the scripts. But Lucas set the film in an earlier year than the first. I think it's set in 1935, I believe, this one.
35 right? Versus 36.
Yep, 36, 37, something like that, right? And he said it because he wanted to avoid repeating, Nazis as the villains, which honestly, I like that idea. I think that's maybe why I thought it was more fun. I was into it a little bit more.
It was fresher.
Yeah, right. And it's a little bit more like, I don't want to say light because it does get pretty dark and twisted. But
so dark.
It's just a little, like Nazis are never fun, even if they're in a fun movie, So it was a nice change of pace, I thought, right?
Agreed.
You think so too? Yeah.
I agree. Well, because most of the, again, one of another movie that sort of fits into this is The Rocketeer. It's another movie that people are always like, oh, The Rocketeer's on TV.
I know you love that one. Yeah, as well. One of the best ever. And I'm so glad you brought it up. Yes, it's in all
Amazing.
The same family.
But it's all in the same family. Most of the movies I watched, because I grew up with a grandfather who was actually in World War II and fought Nazis. He liked when the Nazis were the bad guy. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Rocketeer. I started very early. And so introducing Indiana Jones was like, oh, no brainer. Like, oh yeah, the Nazis are the bad guys. Like, no big deal. But this was this was different. It was more fun. Because it was, they completely changed locations. We're out of Europe. We're out of America. We're into Asia. And so that change of pace was really cool and colorful. And I think that's why it held your attention more. They also just show and don't, I think that Raiders succeeds because it's very telegraphed and there's a lot of foreshadowing. And the story pacing is very formulaic. This was just kind of a lot of chaos and you didn't really know what was happening next. So I think that too contributed to the success, why I like it.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree. I really never knew where it was going. And even having seen clips, I'm like, so how is that going to happen? I know that's going to come up soon, Whereas in Raiders, I don't know, my attention span with old white men is kind of waning. And there's a little bit of that in the beginning. There's some talking to set it up. Whereas, as you know, with Temple of Doom, we start with some action and then we have a funny blonde and a cute kid. And then there's a village and there's not really a bunch of guys kind of talking really. You know what I mean?
In action. They're always in motion. Something is always happening.
Screenwriters Willard Huck, and Gloria Katz. They worked with Lucas on the story. Let's talk about the actors. Harrison Ford, like we said, total dreamboat. What a babe. It's so funny because as a kid, I didn't really start, like as a teen, I didn't really start thinking of like Harrison Ford as like a hottie until What Lies Beneath. I was like, he's old, but
God,
whoa, right?
yes.
Like
And he was
laying in
never
bed
really
there.
dangerous before either, too. So I think that it was kind of an awakening for everybody. Absolutely.
Now, Jackie, I have to ask you real quick. Do you prefer Indiana Jones, with the open shirt, sweaty, all that, or do you prefer the glasses, the more buttoned up inside Indiana Jones? Do you have a preference? I know that's hard because both are great.
It's so hard. It's so hard. Me personally, Professor, like if we're talking about personal preferences, but like we see him more and he's more iconic in the sort of rugged, open shirt, jacket, hat, whip gun, like all of that. But me personally, I love a Professor, but it's like, I don't know, knowing that he can do both and then having the glasses on and the little bow tie and everything, I think that's part of it.
How funny that, the buttoned up Professor is sort of like Rachel Weisz in The Mummy. And then we have our rugged, fighter, right? Like, it's like Stephen Sommers, wrote the two of them as like,
he was directly inspired.
So Harrison Ford obviously came back from Raiders of the Lost Ark, but in between those movies, he worked on Return of the Jedi. So he was all over George Lucas between these two franchises and Blade Runner. I mean, like, again, we have Spielberg doing hit after hit and Harrison Ford's doing hit after hit in the early 80s. I mean, wild, right? Blade Runner is just the best, right?
It's created its own genre. And it's crazy because even you got to throw in Poltergeist in there because technically he did most of the movie.
Yes, absolutely. I know. Steven Spielberg and Tobe Hooper. I've talked about that. It's a bit of a tense set, that one was, but such a good movie as well. Oh, just early 80s. There's no denying just how much fun and how there were like no rules. And
it inspires
worked.
Everything that comes after it. And it's crazy, even within the 80s, if you watch this, you can see how this production inspired the Goonies. Like even with like the glowing stones in the skull. And I'm like, oh, One-Eyed Willie.
Yep. Oh, I'm so glad you brought, I know the whole time I'm like, and it's not only just because of Ke Huy Quan, but like, it's same DNA, of course, as the Goonies, which came out a year later. So might have to have you back for the Goonies. We'll see next year.
Absolutely. 2 Oscar winners. What are the odds that we threw those two together?
Yes, you're right.
Watching this and I'm like, oh my God, I love this kid so much. I'm so glad he grew up and won an Oscar. And then like I was in the theater and I'm like, Brendan, you worked your ass off. I'm so glad you got that Oscar.
I know. Both very well deserved and a long time coming for them both, right?
Absolutely. I mean, how many years in between?
Oh, right. I'm so many years between like their big hits from back then, but like Rachel Weisz didn't take long to get her Oscar for The Constant Gardener. Remember that one? That was only maybe 5-6 years after The Mummy. So, but yeah, our boys very well deserved. And the same year, right? I think that was the same year.
Literally the same exact year.
Yeah.
And then Jamie Lee finally got her Oscar. And it's like, it just felt like all the people that we love are finally getting recognized. It's
some great badasses. That was an awesome year for actors for the Oscar wins. Like 4 long time, strong, really badass performers, Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. And he is just so good. This was his movie debut. And I mean, I know some fans seem to really find him annoying.
Absolutely.
Maybe because I love the Goonies and I love him as Data in the Goonies. I love his voice. I think I've read on like Reddit, some people are like, God, his voice and Willie, Kate Capshaw's screaming. It's just so annoying.
I will defend
Kate Capshaw's screaming did it was a little like, when it's all the crazy, like
it's grating.
Bugs, which is so fun. It's a little grating, a little bit like in one scene, but I thought it was great for them both. I don't need everyone to be quiet, right?
No, she did what she was, and I will defend her because I think my mom was one of the biggest people. She's like, I hate Temple of Doom. She's just shrieking the whole time. And I'm like, you have to understand, she is an excellent actor because she did what Spielberg wanted her to do. He wanted her to be a shrieking, like just panicked mess the whole time. And that she was kind of, I mean, it sucks because her character's reduced to just like, Oh my God. And there's some really dumb lines when she's all like, we're not sinking, we're crashing. Like, just how she delivers them is how he wanted her to do it because it was supposed to be cartoonish. She did an excellent job, and I will fight anyone who says Quan is annoying. He is so easy. The rapport that he has with Harrison Ford is so relaxed and easy. And for a kid,
oh my
I
God.
mean, that
and
can't be
a
taught.
new kid. Yeah, a new kid to this
with no experience.
Is so impressive. So dang cute and funny and heartwarming, you know, later on when Indiana's, you know, possessed, basically. He's like brainwashed.
Oh my God, I get so
hits
upset.
him.
I get so upset when he hits him and he's got tears in his eyes.
Hold on to your potatoes!
Again, we haven't seen Dial of Destiny, but like, when is Key gonna just come back and take over the franchise?
Let's have Short Round. In my notes.
Right? I assume, again, some fans maybe won't want that, but it's a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer at this point.
It is a no-brainer. I agree, because he has the martial arts background. I mean, he was doing martial arts in this when he was like, what was he, 10?
Oh
like
my
9?
God, yeah, right? It's like, that, yeah.
He's doing the kicks like nobody's business, and we've seen him in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and we know that he worked as a stuntman for years and years and years. He has the physical capabilities. He is the perfect person to take over, and I mean, he has the relationship with Indy where it could be like passing the torch.
Absolutely. And can't you imagine? Oh my gosh, I was thinking about this earlier today. Can't you imagine? Short Round is now, you know, and obviously an adult. He's already, you know, he's not young anymore, but the movie opens with, we see, you know, where he lives, whatever. Can't you just imagine there's like a picture, you know, of him and Indy from back then, maybe him and Willie, or even better. Okay. What if Willie adopted Short Round?
Oh my God.
He has a phone call with Willie. She has a little cameo because she's never come back to the franchise, right? Willie's been,
no, because everyone was so mean to her.
Everyone was so mean to her. But I am totally down for a little Willie cameo on the phone or whatever. I don't know, little picture frame.
Even just that they kept in touch. Like, just
so
something small. I think that it's perfect. And I loved him in Loki. So I'm like, all right, you already got that Disney connection.
He's in Loki. Okay, totally. Yeah.
Like,
right?
Get a Disney. I want a Disney Plus series about Short Round. I put it out into the universe. Make it so.
I love it. That would be so cool. Yeah, maybe it's a series. Oh my God, I love this. Bring in Harrison just for a little cameo.
Just a cameo.
He's getting old. He doesn't want to do this.
He doesn't want to
anymore.
act.
Come on.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm so down with like Key and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Maybe, I don't know how the movie ends, but I assume like that could be a fun duo. Yeah.
Have Karen Allen make a cameo. You know, it's like,
I know she's basically in almost every other one. I think she's made comebacks every time. Yeah, except for this one.
Yeah, I think she's in 3 out of the 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Can we talk about the music in this one? I mean, the Indiana Jones March is phenomenal. Yeah. Okay, cool. But the music in this one, I vibe out so hard.
Oh, it's great. And again, it's creepy. It's very dramatic. Yeah, it's fun. We got, and it's so perfect because we have, you know, all of Asia. It's not just like Shanghai, you know, in the beginning.
The dirge of like the slave march, and then it goes into the bright notes of like, oh, we're in Shanghai. And then you know, it loops it all back in with the initial theme. Like, I love the theme to this movie.
I love it. I know.
I'm a nerd. I listen to like movie scores just, you know, for fun. And I'm like, anytime this will come on, or the motorcycle chase from The Last Crusade.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. All right, let's turn this one up.
Oh, yeah. Feeling adventurous.
I really is probably one of the nerdiest things that I do. But I love the music in this movie.
I love that.
I think it's better than any of the other ones. It's so different.
I'd sleep closer if I were you. For safety's sake.
Dr. Jones, I'd be safer sleeping with a snake.
A bunch of actresses auditioned, including Sharon Stone, which totally tracks.
It does.
I could totally see her being in the mix. But yeah, like we said, they wanted a complete contrast to Marion Ravenwood, Karen Allen. So I know a lot of fans are like, she's no Karen Allen. That's
That
what
was
they
on
wanted. They
purpose.
want, so yeah, I mean, she did what she did. And honestly, I think she is a comedy queen, and it makes me wish like Kate Capshaw went on to do more. She really doesn't have a ton of movies under her
I
belt. You know
agree.
what I
There
mean?
was
I
a
think
movie called The Love Letter that she was fantastic
yes,
in.
with
Like,
wasn't
I
that with
know she's Ellen
oh my
DeGeneres
gosh, Ellen DeGeneres and maybe
and
was it
Tom
Liv
Everett
Tyler?
Scott.
Oh my God, Tom Everett Scott, yes, in like the
Yeah,
late 90s, absolutely. Oh yeah, it
Julianne
was Julianne
Nicholson.
Nicholson. Yes, that's who it was.
I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else in it, but it
The
was
Love
like
Letter.
she was
Yep.
legit good. And I
Uh-huh.
like anytime that somebody like talks crap on her. I mean, she did her own singing in this. Like she's
Oh, did she
very talented.
really?
She did.
Wow.
Like they're like, oh, there's gonna be a nightclub scene, which let me tell you how much I love a nightclub scene. Go
I
back to
love
The Rocketeer. I love a
oh
nightclub
yes.
fight.
Oh
But
yes.
like the choreography of all of that, and then having juxtaposing that with the opening number that we just had, where it was
Anything
everybody's
goes.
doing this choreographed dance, and then you go into this really choreographed fight, and it's just so beautiful. It's
Oh
perfect. But
yeah.
yeah, she did her own singing for that. And they
Wow.
put her in this like real 1930s dress.
Talk about
And
fashion.
she couldn't move around much in it, but I'm like, for what you did great.
Oh yeah.
And
How
then
funny.
wornontv.net is where I go to
Oh,
find stuff.
wornontv.net. Brilliant.
I can't do it.
You can do it. Willie! We are going to die!
In Temple of Doom, when Willie's in the cave with all the bugs, which was like
Oh yeah.
really, really stressful for me.
Oh my God, it's so crazy.
I was watching this and you could tell that she was actually covered, and I looked it up and I'm like, I have to know. Like, did they have a stand-in? What what did they do? And she's like, she basically just took like a muscle relaxer or a sedative.
I read that too.
And it was like, all right, I'm just gonna like have an out-of-body experience. Otherwise, I'm gonna die. All I could think of was Charisma Carpenter and how Joss Whedon made her like when like the Order of Taraka or whatever, when they're coming and sending the assassins after everybody. And there was that one guy that was like a door-to-door salesman that was literally just maggots on the inside. And then he explodes when her and Xander kill him. And it's all in her hair and all in her clothes.
Oh God, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's like poor Charisma. Oh, I can't.
God.
I feel for these actresses, the things that they had to do. And I'm pretty sure those were like, were they scorpions? It looked like they were lobsters.
Oh my God.
What were those bugs?
I know, they were some like Asian lobsters all over her, right? It was crazy. It was so gross, and it's so impressive that she really had them on her. I'm sorry, no, I would not.
I know
sorry,
I can't do it.
She's covered in bugs everywhere, and that epic spiky ceiling is lowering on
we are
Indian
going to die.
Right? And she's got to put her hand through the gross like hole, the wet, it's just that
when
whole sequence is
pushes
so
his hand through. I've seen this movie a million times.
Yeah.
I literally went I was so stressed out from the bugs.
Oh, I know.
That I'm like, okay, you know what's happening. Pull yourself together.
Now, so okay, you were telling me about how your first watch of The Mummy. What was your first watch? Do you remember of Temple of Doom? Were you with those neighbors, or was it with Dad?
No. So I had a grandfather who loved the Indiana Jones movies. He also literally did not care what we watched as kids. I watched Terminator when I was way too young, and I had a thing with like endoskeletons. I'm like, do people just pull off their skin? Like
I know. Ooh.
Yeah, no, this actually started in Arizona. So we visited, I was like probably 7. Way too young to be watching this. And it's funny, I actually read a couple years ago that this and Gremlins were the reason why the PG-13 like rating was invented. And I'm like,
how funny.
That makes so much sense, because I should not have been watching Gremlins the age that I was at. And I sure as hell should not have been watching this. I am petrified of snakes, like petrified. And in the scene where him and Marion fall in Raiders, when they're in like that pit, I don't know, I gotta watch it like one eye closed and blur my vision. And even the sound, I'm like, la, 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 la. And I pick my feet up off the floor and I'm like, okay, no limbs touching anything. We're good. We're safe. I like the olive lady. Do you remember her on Maury when it's like, this woman was afraid of olives and they're like, bring out the olives. And she's like,
oh my God. I did not remember that. Oh my God. On Maury.
It's a clip. It is a clip worth watching because that is my level of irrational fear of snakes. Terrified. Wow. So, I mean, this has been since I was a child. So I was probably about like 7 years old in my grandparents' retirement community watching this movie, and the snake surprise scene comes on. I mean, I was already like, I'm not okay when she pulls the giant snake and because she thinks it's the elephant and then throws it. I'm like, okay, no. And then like the whole scene where she's like about nature, that's me. All right, I don't camp. I'm not outdoorsy. Like that
See,
is
that's
me.
why I think people find that so annoying, but I'm like, I kind of can relate.
Girl,
like,
I get it.
I get it. Like she's like doing laundry and all of a sudden I just love how she just picks up a huge bat or something.
I'd be okay with the bat. I'd be like, oh baby, you don't belong here. Go fly. Like bats don't bother me. I think they're very sweet. But if there was like a freaking goanna that was just like hanging out and like the monkey was a little ridiculous. I'm like, it's a monkey.
Yeah. But no, it makes sense because she's not of this world. So yeah, it's a little annoying. I think only because, it's the same level of scream. And then meanwhile, the boys are, I think, playing cards or they're doing something, ignoring her. So
which was such a good scene. He's like, no, you cheat.
Yes. And apparently that was all improvised, that scene like, for them.
And that's what I love. It was so natural. But like, when she's having her freak out, I'm like, I can't say anything because that's me. But like,
I hear you.
Once we get to the snake surprise, I was like, when she's like, what's the surprise? I'm like, oh God, what is the surprise? And I had already had an incident by that point. So I was in second grade. Lion King had come out. I was in Canada. They brought a naturalist to our school and they proceeded to bring out all these animals and talk about, oh, this is so cute, but here's how it can hurt you. And then they had brought out a python and all of its little wriggling babies. And we're like, all right, everyone, 2 fingers, walk by and touch the snake. And I was like, oh my God. And everyone made fun of me. And like, I came back to school and people were throwing snakes on my desk, like rubber snakes on my desk. Like it was a thing. And so like, it wasn't until I'd seen this movie and I knew he was afraid of snakes that I was like, oh, my dude. Like, I felt
he is human, right? Yeah,
but,
exactly.
The babies were what did me in. And so when they cut open the snake, I think it was eels, but I can't even watch it.
I literally made a noise. I was like, oh no. Yeah. Is that during the big like dinner scene, right? Once they're at
and they carry it out. I have musical cues. I have musical cues to tell me when they're going to bring out the snake. And I start going like this and I start watching the movie through one eye or like completely looking away. And then I have a musical cue when he's flicking the admiral or the captain or whatever that's at dinner with them where he's flicking them away. And then a musical cue for when they bring out the bugs. But I still have to watch it through one eye because the snake is still wriggling in front of Kit Capshaw. But when I was a kid, I ran out of the room. Okay, so that was the first time I tried to watch it. And I'm like, all right, this is pretty good. Let's keep going. And so we had the VHS tape. I tried to watch it again. And then we got to the bodies hanging in the underground cavern. And I'm like, I'm not okay, but we're going to keep going. And then we got to the bugs and I was done. So fast forward to like a couple months later, like I think it took me years to get through this movie.
To really get through it. Oh
I think it took me at least 3 years to get through the movie. And so I picked it back up with the bugs. And then it got to the point with Mola Ram and the screaming laughter and the flaming heart, and it's like, I mean, I was done. I was like, okay, I gotta turn it off. And then years later, I was probably about like 9 or 10 that I finally made it through this movie. And it was like a reward, like it was the scariest thing that I had ever seen up until then. So I'm like, you made it. You did it.
Yeah.
You don't believe me? You will, Dr. Jones. You will become a true believer.
Yeah, what do you make of the heart? I mean, let's talk about like maybe for many the most memorable moment of the whole movie is right. What do you make of that? What was your first thought? Do you remember your
My
memory
first
of that?
thought was turning off the TV because it was like,
running.
well, I couldn't, I was like shut down. It wasn't until he got into like the guy he rips, Kalema Shatire.
Yeah.
Like, he rips out the guy's chest and the guy's just going, Om Nam Shivai, like, screaming, and I am frozen. And then when he finally gets lowered down, I had to turn off the TV the first time I watched it because I was so scared. I couldn't move and I couldn't get to the TV fast enough to turn it off.
Oh my God. I could just picture you with like your fingers like missing the right button and you're like, ah. Yeah, I mean, but like just them like lowering into that like lava, talk about T2, the end of Terminator 2. Oh my God, love it.
Oh, but see, that was emotional and sweet.
But that's, always brings a tear to my eye. But this, like, whoa, yeah, this is PG and like family friendly, but whoa, that is scary. That is intense scary,
As an adult, I'm vibing with the cultists. Like I get like, I'm like, oh, this is a good part. Like as a kid, absolutely terrified. And that's why it was so rewarding to make it to the end because it was so scary for me.
For a ride.
Is he nuts?
He's no nuts. He's crazy.
It's interesting that Willie Scott, I know she's like an American. Why? I forget. Why is she in Shanghai? Does she say?
I mean, she doesn't really elaborate. See, here's where, I mean, if the movie has a detriment, it's that, the showing, not telling thing, like some things need to be told. Why is Willie there? Why is Dan Aykroyd a British pilot?
I know. What a funny cameo. And he doesn't even get a close up. I noticed like it's sort of just a wide shot and you just sort of can see it's him. You can hear his voice.
I know in Japan they have like there's white celebrities because it's just like, especially like tall white men. It's very unique to see someone like that in Japan. So, maybe it was like almost kind of a rarity and oddity, although there was a ton of white women in like, the backup dancer costume. So I'm just like, are they hoping we don't notice? Or like, is there like a whole troop of dancers that they shipped over from America? Like, explain to me. So yeah, there was some stuff. And then the magical thing of like, explain to me why the fire snaps people out of their trances. Like that kind of bugged me. Because I'm like, how many years later, 40 years later, I still don't have an explanation. It just is. And then there's a throwaway line that Shorty says is like, oh, you were in the black sleep of Kali. I'm like, okay, that's all I get.
Okay. And a little bit of a burn will wake you right up. Yeah. Yeah. I just love that. Like once we are in this amazing, epic kind of roller coaster in the little, cart through the mines, which is so much fun. And you kind of feel like, okay, this is the finale. No, then there's like the water shooting out everywhere. And then we're on the bridge. And it's like, it's just amazing how like, oh my, like I could feel like, wow, this is a movie. Like this is hard work doing all of this and these actors getting all this thrown at them. And then like, Indy cuts the bridge. It's just amazing. And I love the insane, intense shots of people just falling to the alligators, crocodiles, whatever they are.
My only gripe is that y'all shot this in Sri Lanka. You're telling me that you couldn't get actual crocodiles. I live in Florida. Those are alligators.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know. I was thinking that. I'm like, something tells me those are shot in a whole different place because they were just so close up.
Yes.
We see no other space around them. I'm like, okay,
they were not there in Sri Lanka.
Okay. Yeah.
I love
that. But hey, it worked. those quick, like close cuts of them snapping at stuff. I'm like, I mean, it's just amazing that it was still going. Like, nope, the movie's not over yet. Just when you think like, okay, we're going to start to, and then, then the kids running at the end, they're all free and it's just so fun. And I even wrote in my notes, I love the last shot of the movie is like a cool shot where it's all the kids. It's Short Round on top of an elephant, I believe. And then the camera pulls back and then we have, our couple, which is so funny because she's told him multiple times she like doesn't really like him. She can't wait to get away from him. And then he's pulling her towards him. I think, doesn't he like whip her and like,
and I did not believe that romance at all. I like this scene where they're in the bedroom and everything is like cutesy and you could tell that they tried really to insert it for humor, but I did not buy it at all. And I get like, oh, he's supposed to be really dashing. She's like pretty, like it makes sense for him to just have like a dalliance with somebody before like he gets back with Marion, whatever.
Right.
But I didn't buy it at all.
We really didn't need it. It's totally fine just having like a platonic, male and female lead that they do kiss or there might be flirting, but it's like, this isn't going to work. Don't even try it. You know what I mean?
No.
So, but still it's cute how then they come together, they kiss and then all the kids around them and then it ends. And I'm like, wow, that was a great final shot. That probably took so many takes, right? Oh, so good.
Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory.
My big thing is I just hope that Short Round comes back. I think that he was easily one of my favorite parts of this. So quotable. I mean, like Quan, on any given day around my family, we're quoting something from the Goonies, or because I'm so short and I have to move myself so far up in my car, I go, okay, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes. So, God. I would love to see him as an adult and how he would deal with this like character and how he would portray it, because I think that he's somebody who genuinely cares about the material. I'm going to put it out into the universe. I want a Disney Plus show with Short Round.
Yeah, and it makes me really like wonder like why did the fourth or fifth one not even try to get him back, especially the fifth one. It just came out. I guess I don't know. I like you said he was doing more stunt work, so maybe they were just like, oh, he's not really acting as much. Yeah.
So this is before the Oscar win. So I didn't think like we all know how Hollywood works. It's like if it's not bankable, they're not gonna move forward with it, even if it would be an amazing hit. The people that are willing to take risks are the people that I love. If you cast the people that would be right for the job versus like who's hot right now, I think that you'd have an even bigger hit on your hands. So I'm just gonna put it out into the universe.
There you go. You got to give me your ranking because I don't think you really did. So we know. Okay, we won't say Dial of Destiny because we haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. 4 for you would be Crystal Skull.
Yes. So 4.
That's last. Okay.
And then I would probably say Raiders is number 1. Closely behind that would be Temple of Doom, and then so literally in order of the original trilogy.
Yeah, how funny. 1, 2, 3, 4.
But Raiders and the Temple of Doom are neck and neck because I don't even put them in the same category. And then there's some things about The Last Crusade that are a little clunky. Like, I think that casting Sean Connery, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for saying that, casting Sean Connery, it's just like they're too close in age for me. And I have a problem when, just to call out The Mummy Returns, trying to get somebody that is too young to have the child that they have. Like the age doesn't make sense. And I thought that Elsa sucked. She is the worst, like indie, like the love interest.
Okay.
I do not like Elsa. And I mean, you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But,
okay. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm going to continue watching for sure. I'm going to watch the 3rd one. I'm going to rewatch the 4th just because I don't remember it at all, really. I just remember Cate Blanchett's Anna Wintour haircut. And then I'll watch 5. Yeah, the Black Bob.
From Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Hey Rewinders, these movies are so special to so many of us, so that's why I had to include these messages from other fans of Temple of Doom and The Mummy. Here are Josh Gorski from the Video Dropbox podcast, Kit Sheehan, Melissa Ward, Samantha from Loveful99, and Jenna from Jenna Craig Design.
Hey Mark, Josh here from Video Dropbox. I'm phoning in on behalf of Joe and I just to share our love of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. We 100% talk at length about how much we absolutely love and adore this film and think it is the best out of the franchise, specifically because a lot of the horror elements and dark twists and turns that it takes throughout the film. But I specifically just wanted to give a big shout out to Miss Willie Scott, Indiana Jones' love interest, because she does get a lot of unnecessary hate, and while I know she does a lot of yelling and screaming and is very much a damsel in this film, I also think that she should stand iconically as one of the best heroines in a film, because she's, throughout all of the terrible things that she has to endure, I think they're pretty justified and warranted. And I have to just say, like, out of all the iterations of the Indiana Jones franchise and what we've gotten after Temple of Doom, I'm really disappointed that we didn't at least even get a cameo, because I think it would have been just a lot of great lip service for the fans who ride hard for Miss Willie Scott, and also just specifically, I have to say, the gays that absolutely love and adore her, because let's face it, she is a gay icon.
I thought archaeologists were always funny little men searching for their mummies.
Mummies.
Hey, it's Kit. Okay, so my Mummy and the Mummy Returns commentary. On this, the eve of my birthday, I just rewatched The Mummy Returns and The Mummy back to back in that order, which I think is what I did back in middle school when we first saw them. I think I saw like clips of the first Mummy on TV, and then I saw full in theaters with my biological dad. I saw The Mummy Returns, and it connected with me, man. Obviously, as everyone does, I had a massive crush on every single person in that movie. We're talking the bodyguards. We're talking the kid. We were only like 2 years older than the kid. We're talking everybody. We're obviously talking our main four. It's absolutely astounding. And when I came into school the next day, our dear friend Melissa was as obsessed with The Mummy Returns as I was. And so we would talk about it all the time. We would refer to each other. She was a Nox and a Moon, and I was Evie. And I think Ricky Trotman was supposed to be the emperor. I can't remember his name, but he was, or the pharaoh, or the main dude that a Nox and a Moon is married to. In any event, though, I must note that in recent years, upon going back and watching them, The Mummy objectively is a far superior movie. But I realized back in the day, I think it's The Mummy Returns that has driven it home for me. That and my reaction to Briscoe County Jr. as a child that I took entirely sincerely. And I just think as a kid up until probably like 15, I don't know, maybe it was my introduction to John Waters when I finally understood camp, because camp before, but I always loved camp. I just thought it was really sincere and was like, no, it's the best action movie of all time. It's dramatic. I cry. And now I see it for what it is, which is so freaking fun. A return to the terrible action sequel of back in the day, and just a beautiful, fond memory of my middle school and high school years with you guys. You probably remember I had a framed poster of The Mummy Returns hanging next to my desk in my high school bedroom, and would glance over at it whilst working on homework all the time.
Hey, it's Melissa. I just wanted to show my love for The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I've watched both of these movies countless times. I love them. I will definitely watch them whenever I get the opportunity. If I stumble across it on TV, I'm definitely watching. I think I really love The Mummy Returns specifically because you get to see the romantic relationship continue and grow, and I thought that was really satisfying. You don't always get to see, what happens after the happy ending. And I just loved their little family, and I thought their son was just so cute. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say on the podcast.
Hi, it's Samantha from Loveful99 on Instagram, and I'm so excited to be able to share my love for the movie The Mummy. It came out in 1999. I was 11, and it actually came out around my mom's birthday, so I remember the day we went to the theater. It was a big deal. It was my mom's birthday. We love going to the movie theaters for our birthdays and seeing whatever movie comes out. That theater was full. I remember people laughing in the theater, cheering. We clapped at the end. It was such a fun movie experience. We went back to the theaters about 8 more times within the next 3 weeks to see the movie. We'd come home from school, my mom would be like, I'm bored, let's go see The Mummy. And we would just go to our local theater and see it a bunch of times, and sometimes twice in a day. It's still one of my favorite movies. Anytime I see it on TV, I stop what I'm doing, I watch it, and I'm still obsessed with it today. I love watching it with my kids and my husband to this day, and it's literally one of the best movies of our time.
Hi, I'm Jenna Craig, and I own and operate Jenna Craig Design, where I make mostly mummy-themed merch and apparel. I think what makes The Mummy such an iconic film is that it's a film that really knows what it is. It's just a campy, swashbuckling adventure film with a dash of horror, comedy, and romance in there as well. That above all, just it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's just pure fun to watch. Like, nobody would say it's the most historically accurate depiction of ancient Egypt, but then again, it's not trying to be. Despite any accuracies, you can tell it was made purely for the joy of filmmaking. Like, even in any behind the scenes clips or interviews you watch now, it's so obvious that every single cast and crew member poured so much passion and love into it, and that really shines out in every single scene and performance. Plus, the chemistry between all of the actors, especially Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, is just fantastic to watch. I think The Mummy, it feels like a love letter to the old school Hammer horror and Universal monster movies, but also it's a huge nod to the old Errol Flynn and Indiana Jones films as well. That's why I think it's a film that, deservedly so, has stood the test of time, and why it's still so beloved 25 years later.
Something underneath that sand.
Let's switch over back to The Mummy. Now, you brought up The Mummy Returns. I haven't seen that in so long. I wanted to try to watch, but I didn't have enough time. I obviously rewatched The Mummy on the big screen, which you did as well in theaters recently. What did you think of that experience, seeing it? Because this was your first time seeing it on the big screen. Am I right? Wow.
Yes, I never got to do it. So it was just so wonderful. And again, I phrased it before, like, kind of almost like pulling it up like a blanket and getting cozy.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with these movies. And so for me, just being in a recliner and watching a movie that I will literally watch every time that it comes on TV, or just like, you know what, I haven't seen this in a while, let me put it on, and it's like a comfort. Yeah. It was perfect. And just to have the soundtrack and all of the, it's really funny to rewatch stuff and realize that I have so much of the soundtrack and like any of the sounds, the musical cues, like everything is like a sense memory when you, it's the Universal logo and then it swoops down over the Sphinx.
I remember being so excited. Like, I was like, okay, it's beginning. Like, it was thrilling that swoop
City of the Living.
Logo.
Like,
yes. I saw this in theaters, like when it first came out. I remember it was like Mother's Day weekend or right before, and we were there and the theater was packed. So I was a little sad for you when you told me like, oh, this will be my first time seeing it in the theater.
I know.
But, I'm glad you finally did it. And luckily it sounded like you had a packed theater for this re-release.
We did. Right? It was so crazy. Like, I live in a place, I live on the Treasure Coast. Not a lot happens here. And because I guess there was only like 2-ish showings. And so the people that wanted to see it booked tickets, and it wasn't completely full, but it was a pretty packed theater. And that's I was really surprised that there was that many people, because it's not.
Meanwhile, it was me and one other guy. And I was like, this is awesome. And I had I got a
I
free
had a
popcorn because
notebook.
did you? I was thinking about it, but when I saw that there was only one other person, I'm like, I'm gonna sit in the last row. It was a smaller theater, so that was great. Last row, and I just dimmed my brightness, and I was just taking all sorts of notes on my phone, and so many misspellings. I'm like, oh, I don't know
Oh
what
no,
I
it
meant.
was like looking at my notes, it was just like so messy. And then I had to retranslate them, but I'm just like
Yeah.
iconic, iconic,
Uh-huh.
iconic.
Uh-huh.
I just kept like writing key phrases.
It's your own Book of the Dead. You're coming up with your own spell. Iconic, iconic, iconic. But
Iconic,
right, that was
iconic.
the connection I was thinking of. How funny, and I forgot as I'm rewatching on the big screen, knowing that we're about to talk about it in a week or
No,
two.
you mustn't read from the book.
Right? You mustn't read from the book, and then the wind, and I'm like, oh my God, how perfect.
You must not read from the book!
What
There's
a great
so many
little
similarities.
connection.
Just the physicality of Brendan Fraser is so much like Bruce Campbell. Yeah,
You're
I mean,
right.
you
Very
got
Ash.
reading from the book of the dead that you're not supposed to be reading, and it's like this big handsome man with like a gun. There's a lot of
There's definitely.
similarities.
I love that. You're so right. I know, and I had forgotten, so that I was like smiling to myself. I'm like, ooh, that's so perfect, right? But talk about another movie with amazing sets and locations. I mean, and I just
Even what
I've
they
always loved
did.
Egyptian stuff, like Egyptian history and the gods, and it's just so you are transported in this movie, right?
Yeah, and even what they did with the special effects, that whole opening shot was a model. And
Yeah.
God, one of my favorite memories with this is when I finally got the DVD.
Mm.
And I was probably about like 8th grade when I finally got the
Okay.
DVD, because we were
Yeah.
in the VHS era in
Okay.
early middle school.
Uh-huh.
But they had
Yep.
the making of stuff, and I would watch that. I would watch the commentaries. That's how I found out that Eric Avari was actually recommended because he was an Encino Man. With
Yep.
no wheezing the Jews, like
I love
because
Encino Man. Oh my God, classic.
oh my God, between that and Son-in-Law, I loved Pauly Shore when I was a kid. I can't
Uh-huh.
explain it.
Hey,
But
I did too. Everyone did. Yeah.
Brendan, that was like his first like big movie, I feel like.
Yep.
And then because he knew Eric Avari, he recommended him for head of the museum curator.
Right. Who's so good and such a jerk
So good.
to our Evie. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But like I would listen to the commentaries and stuff, and I would watch the special features. And so that whole opening shot was a model. They shot in the desert and shot like, Seti and his chariot and everything. They just superimposed it on top of stuff, and then they added additional people throughout, like walking, just CG people walking around.
Yep.
Amazing to watch that happen. Like the special effects in this
cool.
movie, much like Jurassic Park and even Hook, where I'm like, wow, God, these last. Like,
yeah, it aged very
movies,
well. Right? The CGI I did not have any problem with watching
no
again
problems.
on a big screen, right?
Right. No, there were no problems. And there are movies that come out now that I'm like,
yeah, you're like, that's obviously not a person flying around.
Yeah.
That's like a blob. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like a rubber band.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, I just like the whole opening scene. I mean, even the chemistry in this movie is like obvious from that opening, like, exposition dump about Imhotep, because him. So you get Arnold and Patricia together.
Oh yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like,
actually, hold that thought. I should throw it over to you. Why don't, in your own words? I feel like you were about to like tell us in your own words. What's the little short synopsis for The Mummy?
So, The Mummy, in ancient Egypt, the high priest of Seti I betrays him by having a relationship with his mistress, Anaxnamun. They are discovered and kill him. And in the ensuing fracas, Anaxnamun kills herself with the intention of Imhotep, rising her from the dead. And so in like, Orpheus in the underworld style, he goes and he steals her body from her crypt and is unfortunately stopped before he can raise her soul from the dead. And he's cursed to endure the Humdai, which is, they say, is the worst of all ancient curses. And so he'll be suffering for all eternity. And if he is risen, and he is resurrected, he will bring about the 10 plagues of Egypt. So fast forward to mid-20s, you have a plucky Egyptologist who teams up with her, wayward layabout brother and a dashing.
These are great adjectives, by the way. I'm loving these adjectives. Plucky, wayward.
Yeah, because I mean, it's what you would read on the back of a book. I cannot describe it better than that. And so they all end up doing just that. They rise, have him, he accidentally rises from the dead, and wreaks havoc and brings about the plagues and is trying to kill everyone. And so they have to send him back from whence he came.
So good, Jackie. This is great. Oh my gosh. It makes me want to watch it again. And now maybe I will, because it's on Peacock. And then I'll just go right into the second one.
The Mummy
I've
Returns.
never seen the third one. Have you seen
I haven't either, and I
refused.
refused.
Wow. Okay, I'm surprised. Okay.
No.
Yeah, because no Rachel Weisz. She was replaced.
Rachel Weisz. I'm ride or die. I'm sorry.
I know. Maria Bello. Sorry, you are no. You're
Fake
not
British
our
accent.
Evie. Yeah.
No, not my hashtag. Not my Evie.
I know. Hashtag not my Evie. I love it.
Well,
I wonder why she didn't come back.
Take.
Do you know it? Was she too? She was maybe too busy, too big to come back. What do you think?
Not necessarily, because she is very fond of Stephen Summers. She speaks very highly of him, and she is so complimentary of Brendan Fraser. Like, they had an amazing working relationship from all the things that I've read. But I've heard two things. And I agree with both of them. The first one was logical. She just had a child and she wanted to spend more time at home with her kid, which, okay, absolutely.
Yep.
I agree with that. And then the other side of things, she didn't agree that they aged up Alex, the son, so that he was like in his 20s. I had the biggest beef with that in the second movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, she is only 2 years older, and you're trying to tell me that this 28-year-old woman is in her 40s and has a 10-year-old son. Like, don't play me like this, Hollywood. Like, stop right now. Like, this is offensive.
It is quite a time jump. Yeah.
And so now you're trying to tell me that this woman that's only a couple years older, that's like in her late 30s, is now in her 50s and like has a 20-year-old. Like, shut up. So
I see.
I don't think that is true, but I don't disagree, because it's offensive. You're like, oh yeah. You know what? Hollywood, you're in your 30s. You're basically in your 50s anyway. Like,
right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. That is interesting.
Women. They came to uncover its secrets.
Mummies, my good son. This is where they made the mummies.
Now, this came out the same exact day as Election, so I won't repeat all the details, but if you want the full, what was going on in May 99, you can listen to that previous episode. But these were some things I thought were interesting, Jackie. Now, on the news side and sort of TV side, I thought this was wild, and I had forgotten all about this. So there was the talk show, the Jenny Jones show, right? Going back to Maury, like pretty trashy.
Terrible makeovers,
Terrible makeovers and surprising the guests. And this I thought was so interesting. I had forgotten about this true story. So I think it was on this same day, but right around early May 99, a jury had found that the Jenny Jones show and Warner Brothers TV, they found them liable in the death of a man named Scott. You remember this?
Yes.
A guy named Scott. I don't know how to say his last name, but we'll just say Scott. But they found the show liable in his death for purposely deceiving a guy named Jonathan Schmitz to appear on the show in a same-sex crush episode. Yes. And so Jonathan was so embarrassed and blindsided on this show that he killed this guy, Scott, who had, I guess, the secret crush on him. And so the jury awarded Scott's family $25 million that I guess the show and Warner Brothers, of course, had to pay. But that kind of like, I can't remember if the Jenny Jones show was still on the air at that time.
No, was it the guy that that had the crush on him? No, it was. You're right, because he was embarrassed that he was rebuffed.
Yeah. I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that it was.
You're right, because this was on one of my true crime podcasts, and I'm like, oh, Jenny Jones.
Yes, totally deceived. Yeah, major gross misstep. So I just had to shout that out because that was going on at this time. We were
wild.
Way too young to really even know that in real time. But yeah, I know later in life, hearing about that story. But on a much happier note, the top song was "Livin' La Vida Loca." SpongeBob SquarePants had just premiered. Susan Lucci, the great daytime star, was about to finally win exactly on May 21st. So a couple weeks after this movie came out, while it was still hugely popular in theaters, Susan Lucci finally got her Daytime Emmy Award for All My Children after 18 failed nominations during previous years. Had to give her a shout out. And like we were saying, going back to series finale time in May of 1999, Sister, Sister, Mad About You, Melrose Place, and Home Improvement were just some of the shows that were pretty dang popular that were coming to an end at this time. So just wanted to shout out all that. Other popular movies, like we said, this came out the same day as Election. Election was not as popular. The Mummy was number one for a while. But we had Entrapment. We had The Matrix. We had Never Been Kid.
Entrapment.
I know, Entrapment. So sexy with Catherine Zeta and going back to
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Mm-hmm. So in comes The Mummy.
They sought to unlock its treasure.
And then there was light.
Oh, boy. Writer-director Stephen Sommers. We were talking a little bit before I hit record. We got to shout out his great work. So these are the films he had made just leading up to The Mummy, everybody. He made Deep Rising. Do you remember Deep Rising, Jackie? Did you see that?
I do. And actually, the Kevin J. O'Connor was in Deep Rising.
Oh, yes. Isn't that funny? My brain goes there, too. I'm like, oh, I see the connection. He's so
He looks identical.
Funny. Totally. Yeah. It's like he has not changed at all. But yeah, Deep Rising, a really crazy kind of B-movie, like monster on a boat, right? I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah, it was like a
toilet.
It was a creature feature. I think I've only ever seen it once.
Yeah, I know. I really want to rewatch it with Famke Jensen, who I love, and Treat Williams, R.I.P. So great. But so he just had made that. He made some great adventure movies, including Tom and Huck, which Jackie and I were raving about before we started.
Love of my life.
Brad Renfro, love of Jackie's life, was Huck, right? And Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Home Improvement. He was Tom Sawyer, I believe, right? Yeah, he was Tom and Brad was Huck. I think Rachel Lee Cook was in it.
Yeah. Stephen Sommers also did the, because Elijah Wood was actually supposed to come back as Huck Finn.
Oh, was he?
He did the Huck Finn, where
I love
Ron
that Huck
Perlman
Finn.
was Pat Finn.
Mm-hmm.
That one was so good.
So good. And I think Anne Heche and like Courtney B. Vance, maybe, like there's a whole bunch of supporting actors in that one. I love that Huck Finn movie. That was a couple years prior. Wow. So Jackie, you're blowing my mind. So Elijah Wood was supposed to come back kind of like, and so Tom and Huck was like going to be like,
he was doing Flipper. Yeah.
Flipper.
And so he was doing Flipper. And so then Brad Renfro was tapped because he was like the next big thing.
Wow.
And another one that I absolutely loved was the live action Jungle Book.
I love that one too. I'm so glad. Yeah.
So it was like that, I feel like set the scene. He had like a lot of really, really good like action adventure movies in the 90s.
Yes, really well made movies. Like I remember seeing the Jungle Book in theaters and loving it. And it was very, it's a fun movie, but it's like a very like grown up
dark
Jungle Book. Yeah. And like that was like a real movie. It wasn't a kid's movie. It wasn't really like, I guess it's family friendly, but like it wasn't dumbed down. That was like a legit movie. So I'm so glad.
And dude loves some quicksand because
I
swear to
I
God,
remember
quicksand
that
in every single one of the movies he made.
That quicksand in the Jungle Book was stressful. Oh my
very
gosh,
stressful.
You are unlocking a core memory. I love this so much. Yes. So he's made some awesome movies.
Look what I got.
Let's talk just briefly about where our two leads were in their careers. Brendan Fraser, also in 99, had just had Blast from the Past with Alicia Silverstone, which was a cute little thing there for a moment.
Love that movie.
Right? It's so fun. I haven't seen that in years and years, but I remember going to the theater. I mean,
oh, that's a rewatch. I constantly, that's like a comfort movie. Like I want to put on something fun. I'll put on Romy Michelle, or like Blast from the Past.
Blast from the Past. Oh, I gotta check it out again. Yeah, I mean, and Alicia was like so popular because of Clueless and Batman and Robin and all that. So he had just done that. He was in Gods and Monsters, showing off lots of skin in that,
and a Universal
movie.
Monsters connection there too.
Yes, you're so right. Oh my God, I love that. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, James Whale with Ian McKellen, of course. And then he really was showing some excellent skin. Thank you so much, Brendan Fraser in George of the Jungle with Leslie Mann, which is so funny. You know what's so crazy? I don't think I've actually seen that movie. I've seen clips. I've seen
pics.
I don't know if I ever saw it. Is that crazy? Maybe I saw it in the theater and it didn't stick with me. I don't know. That's crazy,
my
right?
sister was obsessed. She was like in love with him. She was like little, because we have about like 7 years in between us. She would put on her Barbie like dress up wedding dress and she'd be like, I'm ready. Who are you gonna marry, Marissa? I'm gonna marry George of the Jungle. Like, and then so on her 7th birthday, everybody went to bed because having a bunch of 7-year-olds in the house is exhausting. And I was up and she's like, what you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm watching The Mummy. Do you want to watch The Mummy?
Wow.
And so I let my 7-year-old sister watch The Mummy and I'm like, okay, here's the scary part. Like, just bear it, like grit teeth and bear it. It's going to be great. You're going to be all in. And then she fell in love with Brendan in that movie too.
Wow. Oh yeah, I would hope so.
And
that's basically what helped him. He was, are you kidding? Like, it's actually unreal.
Well, the hair.
I'm so glad now. The long hair,
that he has in the prison. I'm pretty sure that's still George of the Jungle hair because I do not see a glue line. That is not a wig. That is his natural hair.
Yeah, like it's very impressive. So yeah, he's got like the long locks, the muscles, the greased up bod. I'm just so happy now, years later, people are really realizing that like, no, Brendan Fraser was a total hottie because even when he was a hottie, we weren't really taking him seriously. And he could act, and he was so fun. He was so magnetic. Like he was sort of like an unofficial heartthrob because he kind of wasn't like in all the magazines and like looked at that way. Do you know what I mean?
He was down to earth in a way that like a Chris Hemsworth, like any of the Chris's that you can pick from now.
Yeah, all those
is
Chris's.
just
they're like they were like immediate like hunks. Where Brendan Fraser kind of wasn't.
He's kind of like, goofy.
A goofy hunk, which is maybe the hottest version.
From the Past, he's so goofy and is dressed so goofy, and yet you still like he's got such charisma that you're like you fall in love with him. And between George of the Jungle, Blast from the Past, and The Mummy, those were on constant repeat in my house.
Wow, I love it. I love it so much. That's amazing.
We were big fans, and School Ties too.
School Ties, that was like what really kind of put him on the map. Encino Man, Airheads. I mean, he already
God. Airheads. Right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that was a wig that he had on in Airheads.
Maybe, but he rocked it well. And going back to that book you were mentioning, 1999 best movie year ever, they talk about The Mummy and how, and it's so funny because then Tom Cruise ends up being in a Mummy reboot, which I never saw, and I know it like failed miserably. Was it bad?
I didn't even see it because I refused.
I was like, there's no need. Just give me a sequel with Brendan, right? Like there was truly no need. But it's interesting because this was 1999. Like Tom Cruise was all over his Mission Impossible days, and like, well, he still is. But like Brendan was a bit of a interesting choice, but he makes such perfect sense. We know, and so I think it was because of that George of the Jungle body in action. Yes, exactly. The comedy, the anger, the body, the fighting, like he really was the perfect choice for a movie that has so many genres, right?
Even just the delivery of lines, it's like, hey, O'Connell, looks to me like I got all the horses. Hey, Betty, looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river. Like, it's the delivery is
His delivery is it's perfect, Jackie. Yes, I'm so glad you said that line because a different actor would not have been able to give that much attitude and kind of modern day 1999 attitude and get away with it. Do you know what I mean? But it
The
works
sarcasm
perfectly.
behind it. Yeah.
Yes, that's sarcasm because it feels very modern, which is probably why we were hooked. Because someone else would have tried to make it like kind of feel a little like modern attitude, and it would have been like not no, this is in the 20s. What are you doing? You know? Or on the flip side, someone would have like only done like a 20s kind of sarcasm that might have come off a little like snooty or something. Do you know what I mean? Like the way he played it is just A plus, you know?
Well, and it brings a little bit of levity because you have that whole boat scene that's like really, really super intense, and then it's a moment of comedy. And that kind of goes back to Temple of Doom. It's why these kind of like go so well together because there's these like huge bombastic like fights and, you know, a lot of special effects and, you know, I like choreographed fights. And then there's a moment of comedy. There's a moment of levity. And it just like, and then there's like extreme horror. And then there's a moment of levity. You know what? It's kind of like unfair that someone should be that handsome and be that talented too.
I know.
You know? Like,
agreed.
He had the whole package.
He really did, you know, and Slash does. I mean, he's still doing some good stuff. I mean, he doesn't look like, you know, he used to, but
he won an Oscar. Let's put him in everything.
Let's put him in everything. I agree. And I feel like that hasn't really happened yet. I'm like, why am I not like sick of him yet? Right?
Yet. He was in
but he seems
the Flower Moon.
Oh, he was. I didn't finish it. I should really finish that.
What they did.
Oh my God, it does exist.
I think this may be the Book of the Dead.
Was unleash a force unlike any the world has ever known.
Well, we also have to talk about our girl, our friggin'
beautiful
heroine. I am a librarian. Rachel
I am proud of what I am. Like, I love her so much.
I had forgotten
she's
how
funny
much fun.
too.
Oh, absolutely. I had forgotten she has such great physical and emotional comedy. I mean, I had forgotten about the amazing book.
The ladder.
Domino. The ladder. The book piece is just, oh my gosh. And then, yeah, she plays drunk so well in that scene. I am a library. You know, she's got some really good, fun stuff for sure. And, you know, she was kind of new to us. We didn't really know her all that well, not as nearly as well as Brendan, right? What were you going to say?
With her, she was completely new. And we had zero expectations. And I feel like she went toe for toe with him and was able to hit the beats, which is why, like, later on in the movie, when they're arguing back and forth, it's a very, like, you know, like a Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn kind of like exchange, like very quick, and they're able to hit the beats and make us feel like we're transported to like a romantic comedy from like the 30s or 40s.
Absolutely.
They are perfect together.
Perfect. It's great. It's that classic opposites attract, and they play it so well. And when she looks at him in that scene where he really did almost die, where he's being hung, you know, because I'm sure you heard that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
He, like, really did
Marty
black
McFly
out
part two.
Oh my God, crazy. And she even said like he had to be resuscitated. Like that is crazy. But in that scene when she, you know, helps set him free, you know, she's piling on the money for the guy.
That look from like the balcony. And she's like, you're welcome. Like it sizzled. And I love the like Christine Daae Phantom of the Opera wig that they got.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you're bringing that up. It is so Phantom of the Opera. You are so right.
It's like, it's a little extra, but the hair tells a story.
I love
it's like literally she's buttoned up. She's not as confident and, you know, kind of unsure of herself and sort of school marmy, but like they really tried so hard to make her dumpy by putting on that ugly purple hat and the chunky sweater. And don't get me wrong, I love a chunky sweater, but like they were trying extra hard. You could tell like Stephen Sommers was probably like, yeah, throw her in like a big shapeless sweater and then we'll have her in this like sheer black outfit. Like, you know, it'll be perfect. They tried so hard to make her dumpy, but then like the hair comes down and she's like, you know, on an adventure and confident and uninhibited. It's like, and then when she starts doubting herself again, she's like, oh crap, all right, I got a little too crazy. I let the undead loose. All right, how do I, walk this back a little bit? Her hair's back up. And then as she gains confidence at the end where she's like, okay, you know what? We can figure this out. The hair's in a braid and then the hair's out again.
Great.
I love when hair
great
tells a story.
observation. Yes, you're right. That hair is telling a story.
He will regenerate and no longer be the undead.
Like you said, it is a warm, fuzzy blanket. It is so much fun. It is entertainment, right?
Well, and the pacing's done so well.
Pacing is great. It's great. And how we get a full, thorough opening, the history. And then we get a scene meeting Rick. And then we're like fast forwarded, like you said, a few years where then he's got the long hair. He's been a prisoner. So like it takes its time setting everything up, but it's never a dull moment ever. I am never bored by this movie, right?
No.
It just goes.
Like, if it's your first time watching, you don't need to do too much work either to get introduced and feel like you know these people. Like, okay, so we talked about the first time we met Evie, the first time we meet Rick. The first time we meet Jonathan, like, that was one of the parts in the movie that I thought, I'm like, oh, am I ready for this? Because when he pops up with the, the mummy and is like, ah! And then just starts laughing. And, she slaps him and he's like, oh, come on. And he's like drunk and stuff. And like, who he is immediately.
And he's so dead set on finding like treasure, right? He cares about objects and money. Yeah.
And he's like a little unscrupulous, but ultimately he cares about his sister. And all of that is done in such like, it's such a small scene, but the writing is done well, it's acted well, and you believe that like these two people genuinely care about each other, but he is a total fuck up. And she just wants to be more than what she is, which eventually she has her moment.
Like with the whole, she says she can't, what is she's like applying for something?
The Bembridge Scholars rejected my application yet again. And she's just like, don't get me fired from here. And I love that moment when she was like, take that, Bembridge Scholars. I know something that you don't know.
Yes, I know. I love it so much because it's like we've all been there where you're applying to something that for whatever reason it's really cool or it's really important and you're not getting in. And it's like, you don't even need it. You already know it, like you're already beyond.
Yeah.
I love that.
She was what I wanted to be. It's like basically if you threw, so Beauty and the Beast was my favorite movie as a kid. If you threw Belle
she's very Belle.
A horror movie situation, you got this. It was the perfect graduation for me to like move on to my next icon.
Yes. Wow. Brilliant. You're so right. She's the book reader from the castle to the tombs. Yeah, I love that she is very much a hero, just like Rick is. Just like you said, she has the knowledge of telling Jonathan at the end, like, say that thing on that page or whatever. Like, it doesn't feel like Rick is the only one saving the day. Even Jonathan sort of is in a way, but he's just sort of
because he tricks him and pickpockets him. And this is where like I brought this up with Raiders. Everything is telegraphed so well. Even like when they're talking with the museum curator in the beginning, he's like, "Oh, it's all fairy tales and hokum." I'm like, by the flick of a switch, it disappears into the sand. It's all made up. And literally, the flick of a switch, they hit that, like Benny puts his bag of treasure on that lever and everything sinks into the sand. I love something that can button things up so nicely. Even who we haven't even talked about yet, Omid Jalili as the warden. Like when he's like, bugs, I hate bugs. Like it's perfectly telegraphing his death scene.
Yes.
Which, oh my God.
Whoa, that was a moment. Okay, tell me.
He is like, picking the
blue
gold, like,
yes.
And he's putting it in his bag, and you're like, that something bad's gonna happen. And then all of a sudden you see one of the little scarabs, the flesh-eating scarabs that don't exist.
Thank God.
Scarabs are just poop bugs, guys. They literally just roll dung. But it burrows into his shoe, and then he's ripping open his chest.
Yes.
What I did not know, I mean, that was amazing. We were all distracted. He did not wear underwear with his costume. Why? I don't know. That's disgusting. What if you had a stand-in that needed the costume?
Yeah.
His family jewels and everything else pops out. It is in the movie for
Wait,
a
it
frame.
is?
It is. I did not know this until this year, and I watched a freeze frame of it, and I was literally screaming. And then in the theater, I literally smacked Chris. I'm like, there it is! There it is! So when he's going, help me, he's literally smacking his like wiener back into his pants that should have been in underwear. That's disgusting. Why are you wearing a borrowed costume?
Right. That's so weird. That's so weird. So wait, did his pants just like fall accidentally as he's shaking around? Do you think that's what happened?
So with the pants and how they were constructed, there was like a flap in the front, and so it came out the flap. That
I did
blew
not
my
know this.
mind.
This is movie trivia.
I was shrieking. And then in the theater,
now I
I'm
have
like,
to rewatch.
I'm like, I wonder if they cut it.
Yeah,
They didn't.
yeah. If they like edited it for the re-release, but they didn't. So
it's
for
when
a
he's
frame, you
patting his
see it flopping
pants.
around?
Yes, for a frame. And then so they're like, they didn't catch it in editing, and it wasn't until he's like, oh no, you can totally see my penis.
Yeah, it's horrifying. The bug is now not only in his shoe, but then then we realize no, it's
and then when he
burrowed
rips
under his
open
skin.
his shirt.
Yes, it is an instantly iconic moment. Like
Yes.
watching that for the first time, I knew like, oh, we will be talking about this for a long time. Like that's just a movie moment that's going to be burned in our brains. You know,
His screams are like a sense memory. Like I can, you're like,
Yeah.
it slowly builds, and then he runs face first into a wall.
Yes,
Like,
and that's I guess how he dies, right? That's the last we see of him.
well, I assumed that it ate him from the inside out. So it's like he knocked himself out, and then it just killed him.
Yeah.
But Omajilele doing so much with so little, they wanted him to just be like a one-off.
Yeah, I have to say, I had forgotten, first of all, kind of how important his character is and just how memorable actually he is because, we're so focused on literally everyone else
Everybody
except
else.
him.
Because they're so pretty.
That like he's got it. They're so pretty, and even the 3 American guys love them.
Oh my God.
They're
Chris
so
agreed with
handsome and so
me
fun. Yeah.
Last night, I was like, God, everybody in this movie's hot. And he was like, yeah, even the Americans. And I'm like, yes, except for the one that was in Hellboy. I could take a pass on him. But Mr. Burns, yes, please.
Mr. Burns, Tuck Watkins is so handsome.
Them glasses.
Holy cow. Yes. Although it's so funny. Let's talk about those guys. It's so funny. So I just found somewhere on Twitter. I was like Googling the movie just for some research. Someone I should have taken a screenshot and written her name down, but someone posted the funniest thing about Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is the first one to really get it from the Mummy, right? That scene still to this day, the most horrifying. That is the horror moment of the movie with the close up of his eye, his glasses fall and everyone's running and they leave him behind.
That in the card game, well, I can't see the deck to cut it now, can I? If I don't have my glasses. Again, telegraphing that moment. And as a glasses and contacts wearer, having just a blurry shape stalk me is terrifying.
Terrifying. I agree. Terrifying. I am so there with you. And I'm actually shocked we don't see more of that in horror movies. But yeah, so his glasses.
Let's put it back. Let's make it happen.
Right? Let's add it back in because it is effective. It is so effective. And the way it's shot and he's hearing the noises and we have that close up on his eyes. I remember that was in the trailer.
Camera work is fantastic.
Camera work is amazing in that scene. So this person on Twitter wrote, okay, so the mummy is hungry and wants eyes. Why is he going to go for the eyes of someone who can't see? And honestly, I was like, and she's like, I've been thinking about this for 25 years. And I'm like, oh my God, I have never thought about that. But it is so accurate. Why would you could take something else from him. He's got plenty of other amazing things. But yeah, the eyes are the worst thing. So I guess the mummy just has the power to make the eyes great.
I always
right?
thought that
To LASIK them.
once I saw that meme, I was like, oh, maybe that's why he's like, a knocks on the moon. The
Oh,
next
yeah,
scene,
you're right.
when
You're
he's
right.
squinting. And I'm
Yes.
like, it's because you can't see, you dumbass.
Yeah, because you got the wrong eyes. Yeah, you could have done like something a little bit better. You're so right. Okay, yeah. So maybe that makes sense that he didn't get the best eyes. And there's another iconic moment when
You
Rick
can
yells
literally
back at him. Oh,
see
love
her,
it.
both of their molars. It's like, everybody's screaming and doing the
Yes.
most.
Oh,
Well, that
yes.
scene, I even backed up in the theater when there's a couple of moments that I'm still like, this is still scary. When he like basically unhinges his jaw and screams, I'm like,
Yes.
God, that's still
Oh,
so
yeah. We're getting in,
effective.
and I wrote in my notes with that, I'm like, we're getting into like Freddy Krueger territory where we're just like shape shifting and like
Yep.
getting all freaky.
All
Yeah,
the different
totally.
versions of Imhotep. Like, he starts
Mhm.
out as, gorgeous Arnold Vosloo, who, you know what,
Yes.
credit where credit is due. He did the motion capture for all of this.
Oh, did he
So
really? Wow.
he
Okay.
did.
Amazing.
So,
Mhm.
he did the motion capture, very physical performance. He's like when they're back in Cairo and he has drained Mr. Burns and he's
Yes.
like, getting the sinew back on his arms
Mhm.
and, he's turning around and just that very physical performance. That was Arnold doing that. And then
Mm.
he had to have all of these like little dots on his face when he regenerates after like the second guy,
Mhm.
the
The
attractive
blonde
blonde
guy, which
American.
yeah, like the attractive Owen Wilson, which is so funny because I even wrote in my notes, that scene when he dies, it's very obvious he's about to die, which is fine. Same kind
But
of the
it's
same with
so
Mr. Burns,
effective. The
but yeah.
wind
Oh, yeah, and then the shadow of his body just like, like
falling to
getting
the
skinny
ground.
and yeah,
It
uh-huh.
was so
Yes.
effective. And then, the very like Universal Monsters moment of having the sand go
Mhm.
through
I am
the
so glad you're bringing
keyhole.
that up. I just thought of that as well. I love that so much. And can I just shout out, going again with the Universal Monster theme, I am a major fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis
Me
Ford Coppola's.
too.
I love it. I've talked about it on the show, like love, love, love.
Yes.
That was in the earlier 90s, but it's so funny. There are a couple moments that this movie
It
totally
mirrored
copies
it,
from that. And the sand through the keyhole was much like
like the
the
smoke.
Dracula smoke coming through the door
Yes.
to see Winona, right? So there are some really fun little nods to that great monster movie as well. So I love it so much. And how funny, not a mummy connection, but a connection to Temple of Doom, which is also why these
Mhm.
two are just such a great two-hander.
Yes.
Later in 94, I might talk about it on the show this year, but we had the Robert De Niro Frankenstein remake with Kenneth Branagh,
Yes.
which I love. It's a little sleepy, but I love it. But a big, sorry everyone, spoiler alert, a big heart ripping out scene
Yep.
with Helena Bonham Carter. Do you remember that? So
I
it's funny
do.
how like there's a lot of similar
It's funny
DNA in all
how
these movies.
I associate that more with Kenneth Branagh cheating on his wife like an actually good horror movie.
Because wasn't he with
Emma Thompson,
Emma
and it was
Thompson at
like
that time?
they were so
And did
beautiful
he?
together,
They
and then he
were. Did
cheated
he
on her
cheat
with
on
Helena
her
Bonham
with
Carter.
Helena? Oh shit!
And they were
Wow.
together for a time, and then she cheated on him with Tim Burton.
Yes.
We are in serious trouble.
We haven't
Yep.
even talked about Oded Fehr's character, Ardith Bay,
I
yet.
know.
Ugh.
Another hottie. Wow. What a voice. And I looked up his age. He was only in his like late 20s. I'm like,
Oh,
man,
he
I
was
wish my
gorgeous.
voice was that deep.
I
Yeah,
wanna
he's
know
great. Yeah.
where homeboy got conditioner in the desert because those
I
curls were
know.
so moisturized.
That hair is some of the most beautiful in the entire movie, and we got lots of good hair. His might
And
be
his was
the winner for the
real.
boys. I know his was
Like,
real.
although
Yes.
although Brendan has the Rocketeer
Oh,
hair, so
uh-huh.
I'm
Oh,
like, that's already a step up for me, like
and I love that you're saying it's Rocketeer hair because Billy Campbell and Brendan Fraser. I mean, does it get hotter than that? No.
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 What works about Rick is that, like, he's, bad at flirting, so he seems
Mm.
human, but, like, he's still like, he's been in war, he knows how to do
Mhm.
stuff, but he's really bad at talking to women,
Yeah,
and So it's
he's
endearing.
really bad. It's endearing because he's like really bad and kind of a jerk and like, but then he also is like a gentleman, you know,
He's
like
very soft, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and steals a, the digging kit for her. And it's like,
Oh,
hey, those
yeah.
tools are mine. And she's like,
Yeah, that's right.
not anymore.
Oh, I
They're
know,
mine.
that's
He
so
gave them to me.
sweet. I love their romance. Really well written, well acted. The two of
Yes.
them, and like I
I
said, she is
believed
very
it.
much an equal. I believe it,
Yes.
and I'm rooting for both of them, and yeah, they're so
I think
great
that is the
together. The two of them
sexiest
are great.
thing. When
Mhm.
you are like an equal and you work together, I think that, I mean, you didn't get a lot of that. Women were always sort of secondary and kind
Mhm.
of like, especially when we got into the 2000s, we were just kind
Mm.
of like relegated to eye candy in the background.
Right.
I say we, like I
Mhm.
was ever considered in that pool. But like, I'm
You
speaking
were the
for all
runner-up.
women. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I was
Yeah.
speaking for all women. It was nice to see like they were complete equals, and
Mhm.
there's something sexy about that. Like they're gonna go on to have adventures together, and
Mhm.
he
Yes.
respects her. Drinking the
Uh-huh.
respect women juice is the sexiest thing that
Yes.
you can do.
Absolutely, and, one scene that I really love, and it's an ode to them and their performance, it's later on, I think they're in Cairo, I think they might be in the hotel, I forget exactly where they are, but it's all in one take, one shot,
They're arguing
where
back and forth
they're
and
arguing
like,
back and forth,
yes.
and the camera's kinda moving with them, and then he, picks her up, takes her to the bed of the room, and we're kind of in a long shot, right? And then she's off the bed yelling at him, and he's walking away, and he shuts the door right, like, in her face, like, it's
Yep.
just so much fun, and like you said, it's such a great callback to old Hollywood,
Yes.
opposites attracting, like, that bickering was
Even when
flirting.
she, like, shuts the, suitcase earlier than that, she shuts the
Mm,
suitcase on his fingers, but,
mm,
like, and then you have the steamier moments, like, the kiss at the end is, like, I
mhm,
believed that. That is one
mhm,
of the best movie kisses that I have seen. It's on par with, like, The Princess Bride,
mm.
one of my other favorites, 10 Things I Hate About You. Like, Heath
Classic, yep,
Ledger,
oh.
great movie kisser, like
Yeah, uh-huh, and I love that line 'cause, Jonathan says, "Oh, well, I guess we're empty-handed," 'cause he didn't get as much, treasure
again.
and gold. Yeah, exactly, again, and then Brendan just kinda says almost, like, under his breath, Rick's like, "Well, not totally empty-handed," or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
And then he
It's
grabs
like
Evie, and she's smiling, and it's like, "Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes,
no, that
yes."
whole moment, it's like everything sort of converges and you cannot look away because you're like, "Oh my god, yes. Kiss
Mhm,
him, girl." Like
mhm.
Well, I guess we go home empty-handed. Again.
I wouldn't say that.
Please.
And Stephen Sommers, I forget that he is a writer-director. Like, he's
Yeah.
the one writing these great lines, setting these things up, and
Yes.
finishing them, and it's just a bummer that Van Helsing, which also had a
Oh
a
my
big
god.
anniversary this May,
Blech.
still really fun, maybe because 'cause I'm just a sucker for all the monsters together. But yeah, not nearly as
That one pooped the bed, I'm sorry.
yeah, not
Like
not not nearly as good as these classics that we've been talking about that he made.
when you
Crazy.
have either a really good experience with a movie or a really bad experience,
Mhm.
like I hated Van Helsing so much.
Mm,
I remember it. And with The Mummy, it's like I remember where I
the
was,
opposite.
what I was
Yeah.
doing. We weren't even talking. I was with like the neighbor kids and we weren't
Mm.
even talking. We were so
Yeah,
sucked into this
so
movie.
sucked in.
It's like
Wow.
when you have a like when a movie comes into your life that it's gonna, like, change your life, I feel like you remember where you saw it, or vice
Mhm.
versa, when it's so terrible, you're like, "Oh, I remember where I was when
Oh,
I saw
yeah. Mhm. When it's the extreme, either really great or really awful. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Oh, yeah.
Universal Pictures invites you
His powers are growing.
What? This just keeps getting better and better.
to experience the adventure
It appears he's already chosen his human sacrifice.
that will live forever.
Speaking of senior trip, when we went to Universal, there was the ride. Did you
I
go?
remember oh, yes, that is one of the best rides, Jackie. I wanted to talk about it. Yes. Did you go on it?
Yes.
Yeah, you've
I
been on
went
it.
on it, yes, and
Oh, yeah.
now I live in Florida. Every Halloween Horror Nights, I go on it, and it's like to the point where
Revenge of the Mummy.
I know the ride spiel. And it's
Oh.
like,
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I would have enjoyed this interview more if I got my cup of coffee. And people have been on this so long that they will say all of the your souls are mine. Like they'll be saying the ride along.
Oh my God.
The
Wow.
curse is real. Get out of here.
That is too funny. I just remember, I haven't written it as many times as you have, but I just remember the heat when you get up there right before you fall, and the fire and the mummy.
The fire,
the fire. And I remember I feel like the first time I did that ride was maybe senior trip.
Yes, because they had just opened
it. Was new. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, we didn't even bring this scene up where Jonathan is like, where he's trying to blend in.
I say that all the time. I'm always like,
when I move slowly in lines. Do you remember?
Oh my God,
I don't know if this happened to you in line, but when the line would slow down, like people would start going Imhotep when we were in line. And I don't know who started it. It was fantastic. And I guess that was a common thing to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because the lines were so long and that people were like, they correlated it with the movie. And I'm like, that's amazing.
That is so funny. Oh, I wish I was that smart to do that.
The Mummy.
Death is only the beginning. And this is only the beginning of this long, thorough chat, so if you want more, head to my YouTube page for part 2 of this conversation to hear more of what we think about these two classic movies. Thank you for listening to or watching this episode of Release Date Rewind, and thanks so much to Jackie Renne, my action-adventure starlet, for all your thoughts and knowledge and just being so great. Thank you also to our cameos from Josh at the Video Dropbox podcast, Kit Sheehan, Melissa Ward, Samantha at Loveful99, and Jenna Craig Design. What a cast of sidekicks we have. And if you follow me on Instagram at Release Date Rewind, you might have voted in my recent poll, which mummy hunk would you ride a camel with? Well, the clear winner was good old Brendan Fraser, although Tuck Watkins did come in second place, not all that far behind Brendan, so just keep that in mind, Tuck fans. Thanks also to Straw Hut Media, Kyle Motzinger, Greg Clements, and Portland Media Center. Next time on the podcast, we're getting into June blockbusters, so the action and suspense continue. Bye.